Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. What can I say? Welcome back. My old friend the Logitech Flight Yoke System is back on my desk, which includes the flight yoke and throttle quadrant, by the way. You know what? I'm going to call this the King of Budget Yoke Systems. King of Budget Flight Yoke Systems. If you have PC, Microsoft Flight Sim, I'm going to say this straight from the start, chaps. If you have Xbox Microsoft Flight Sim, this does not work. I've got a lot of videos out on the Logitech Flight Yoke System. This does not work on the Xbox platforms, so please don't ask that in the comments. But if you got PC, Microsoft Flight Sim, you don't want to spend, just for example, the Velocity 1 Flight Yoke System, you don't want to spend a few £100 on a flight yoke, on your first flight yoke. For around about £100, you are getting a flight yoke system that is still simply one of my favourites. It's just great to have this on my desk. In this video, I'm going to give you once again an overview of the features and what you get with the flight yoke system. I'm also going to show you a reasonably priced upgrade path where you can deck out your desk with a whole flight sim setup for a reasonable cost, probably for around the same cost as the Velocity 1 and Honeycomb flight yokes. Well listen, let's not dilly-dally on this one. Let's get on with this video. So at the time of me recording this video, this is almost 4 years old. My Logitech Flight Yoke System, I got it just before, well, 8 months before Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 released. I had a simple HOTAS. I think I was using the HOTAS 4. I've got videos on that. Maybe I'll put one down in the description for you. Previous to that, I didn't own a flight yoke. I didn't want to spend a few £100. I think the Honeycomb Alpha was out at the time. Yes, that's a great yoke, but I didn't want to spend that money, that type of money. I wanted to spend about £100. Gonna link my original review down in the description that I did of this. It's chalk and cheese, especially with Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Using a yoke system, especially in yoke-controlled aircraft, over a flight stick or HOTAS system. Some people do prefer flight sticks or HOTAS, that's your preference, but this is absolutely chalk and cheese in comparison to one. Let's just go over the features quickly. You do have a rocker switch here, a hat switch here, there's a button on the other side of this handle here. I tend to use that as brakes or something of that sort. You've got a where's my hands going? You've got a button here, a couple of other rocker switches here. You've got a mode switch here, which will switch between different modes. Now, it's kind of redundant, this. It was handy in Microsoft Flight Sim 10, Microsoft Flight Sim X, so Flight Simulator X rather. In Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, it's kind of redundant. You can just save profiles in the sim. So I don't use the mode switch much at all, in fact, in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. But you do have that as well. I have done one of my, so actually my second largest most watched video is my original setup video. When Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 released, I did a setup video for this flight yoke system. It's highly popular. It's time now that I updated that. I've got a couple of ideas in my mind for a new setup for this flight yoke system, so watch for that coming. Hopefully I'm going to record that in this coming week. It's time, definitely time I updated that video. With the throttle quadrant, you get this included. You get 6 extra buttons. You get detents on all these levers here as well, so these control levers. So if you want to set reverse thrust, toggle reverse thrust, you can do it that way, or set these for something else. So you get a whole lot of buttons and a whole lot of options that you can set up with this flight yoke system. Now, one of the concerns for people, remember it is a cheap flight yoke system. This only deflects, I think that's around 45 degrees left or right. If you take the honeycomb or the velocity one, where's my hand? There it is. These yokes deflect to 90 degrees, not 180 chaps, 90 degrees each way. 180 will twist the yoke all the way around. It just goes 90 degrees, which is what real aircraft yokes do as well. It's a bit of a concern for people. You're not going to notice this in the sim, especially if this is your first flight yoke system. I was using this just before recording this video, and it still turns nicely. There's a little bit of a detent, I'll come on to that in a moment, in the centre. So you may have to turn a little bit extra just to get the aircraft turning. Not much though. But if I did that in an aircraft in the sim, my aircraft will be going nose downward and probably spinning out of control. I'm only really deflecting banking, probably something like 30% maximum, and it works well. Now, if you go from this to something like the Velocity 1 or Honeycomb, you will notice the difference in the banking axis. So the aileron axis there, you will notice the difference. It's a lot smoother, particularly on the Honeycomb XPC yoke, I've got to say. But even on this Velocity 1 flight yoke system as well, it does feel a lot smoother. And the resolution feels higher in the banking axis, in the aileron axis. So you will notice that. If this is your first flight yoke system, you are really not going to notice that. And it just works and it behaves correctly in the sim. The elevator axis. Mine's always been ultra smooth on my flight yoke system. I did say there's a bit of a quite a lot of a detent in the center of the yoke there. So if I pull it out and let it go, you can see that in action. But it's very smooth. I was just using this in a flight just before recording this video. I was flaring, coming onto landing with no issues at all. Mine's very, very smooth. Remember, this is now 4 years old, almost 4 years old. I've had it in the box now for several months, back in its box, and it's still smooth out of the box. It's hit or miss with these flight yoke systems. Yours may be a little bit more jerky in the elevator axis. It's difficult to say, and it's difficult to predict. Mine's smooth, and other people who have this have a smooth action. You can open the innards and actually change that so you don't get that detent in the center, and it's even more smooth. I've never had to do that, and mine behaves correctly. Even on the Velocity 1 flight yoke system, there's a bit of a detent there as well. Not quite as pronounced, of course, but there's still a bit of a detent. But you just be aware of that. But if you're lucky like me and others, you're going to have a very smooth action. And I do like the elevator axis on this flight yoke system in particular. It's very easy to pull back and push forward. If you compare it to something like the Honeycomb Alpha or Honeycomb XPC yoke, that has a much stiffer axis. And I've kind of come to prefer the stiffer axis on both yokes and flight sticks recently. But if you like it a little bit more gentle and loose, this is going to be right up your alley. There's also like a stopwatch feature. Where is it? Stopwatch feature you can use. How do you start this now? Oh, there you go. Stopwatch feature. Is that reset? It is. And a real-time clock. People have difficulty getting their real-time clock working on this. I did on my laptop. On my desktop PC it works correctly, so I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, okay, that's the features of the Logitech Flight Yoke System in a nutshell. Let me now take you to an upgrade path option that you can do with this Flight Yoke System. So okay, you went out and bought the Logitech Flight Yoke System for a good price. I'll come back to that in a moment. Now, a good upgrade path, you don't need to do this straight away. But these panels, the multi-panel, radio panel, you've even got a switch panel. I left that off for a reason, I'll come back to that in a moment. But the multi-panel and switch panel, these were originally made for the Logitech or Cytec Flight Yoke System. Either or, they're pretty much the same system. But these panels were originally made for this, and these just screw on top. And these panels come highly recommended. Instead of just having a flight yoke system, which is great to start off with, you've now got a complete flight setup for your desk. The multi-panel I use a heck of a lot in both GA aircraft and airliners, and I use the radio panel to tune in ILSs or VORs or something of that sort. I use both these panels quite a lot. Stick them on top of your Logitech Flight Yoke System and you've got one heck of a setup. Now, the Logitech Flight Yoke System, I was looking on Amazon recently. I saw one for just over £100. It's pretty much what I bought mine for, around that £100 price mark. I'm going to put my Amazon links down below in the description, both for the UK and for the US. And I'm going to try and find the best deals on Amazon. Try and get the Logitech Flight Yoke System itself at around that £100 mark. The panels themselves, you can pick these up typically between, I think I got mine between £80 and £90 each. You're looking around the sub £300 price mark, which is roughly the cost of the Honeycomb XPC yoke by itself, or the Velocity One Flight Yoke System. But with this, like I said, you've got one heck of a setup going on there. And this is highly recommended, by the way. I can't wait. After this video, I'm going to go flying with this setup with my old favourite, the Logitech Flight Yoke System. Now, ideally, similar to the Honeycomb XPC yoke, with the Logitech Flight Yoke System, you do ideally need a set of rudder pedals. These are expensive rudder pedals, the Velocity One rudder pedals. You can go with the Thrustmaster T-Flight rudder pedals. I'll try and link a video about them down in the description for you. They'll cost you around £80 to £90 if you shop around. So with the rudder pedals, T-Flight rudder pedals, just for example, the panels and the Logitech Flight Yoke System, you're still looking possibly around that sub £400 mark for a complete, you don't need anything more, chaps, a complete flight setup. Now you can get the the Velocity One Flight Yoke System, which has triggers as rudder pedals for probably sub £300 in itself at the moment. Still, if you're around that price mark, this is my most recommended system around that price mark. If you want to spend more, the best, of course, is the Honeycomb setup. But you're looking to pay a lot more money there. So there you go. Start with the Logitech Flight Yoke System. You're not sure, you've never had a yoke, you want to try one, you don't want to spend a lot of money. Get it for around that £100 mark and gradually build up your panels. You're gonna have a heck of a time. And this is a lot of people's current system still, the Logitech Flight Yoke, with the panels, either the multi-panel, radio panel, or both, and even a switch panel, and a set of rudder pedals. It's fantastic. Can't wait to go flying with this. I wish and I hope something like this becomes available for the Xbox platform. I'm highly surprised Logitech hasn't jumped on this and released a version for the Xbox. I'm surprised other companies haven't followed suit. It's a huge gap and opportunity in the market. A yoke for around that £100 mark for the Xbox will sell like hotcakes. Trust me on that, companies, if you're watching this. Get it released, get it done. But do let me know your thoughts on the video. Do you have the Logitech Flight Yoke System? I think a lot of you still do. My settings video is my second. It's still per month my highest viewed video. I've got to do an update, a 2023 edition of my settings for my Logitech Flight Yoke System. Watch for that coming soon. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, and I'll be seeing you soon.